before this story begins, an old legend was already whispered across the land. A black cat, secretly in love with a white cat with royal blue eyes, curled up together on a golden throne. Nobody knew yet that this legend was a prophecy, one written in blood, war, and sacrifice. Because the boy who would become the Dark Prince and the girl who would become the Queen of Light hadn't even met yet. One of them would rise from the ashes of a slaughtered village, the other would carry an entire kingdom on her wings. And when their paths finally crossed, they wouldn't just fall in love. They'd end up deciding the fate of two worlds. This is the story of Aurora, the orphan who vowed revenge and became heir to the kingdom of darkness. Act 1, the night everything was taken. In a peaceful little village, a boy named Aura was just an ordinary kid with black hair tinged red, heading out on a hunting trip like any other day, listening to the advice of his elders and dreaming about nothing more dangerous than the clouds overhead. Then came the scream. An uncle came sprinting through the village in a full panic. Monsters were attacking. Aura didn't hesitate. Following the elder's instructions, he led a group of 3 young children toward the safety of a cave on the hill. But the escape turned into a living nightmare. A massive scorpion-like creature caught up with them again and again, and one by one, the children he was carrying were sacrificed to it, passed away in pain right in front of him while all he could do was watch, his knife useless against its armored hide. By the time he reached the cave, he was carrying only the last child, a little girl entrusted to him by her dying brother. And when he finally went looking for help, there was no one left to find. Every villager in the surrounding area had been slaughtered. The once lively village was reduced to a single surviving soul, standing alone in the rain. That's when an old knight named Skirs found him, not celebrating a rescue, but digging graves. Aura had been burying his dead neighbors to the point of near collapse, refusing food until Skirs pressed a loaf of bread into his hands and watched him devour it like a starving animal. As they sat and talked, Aura admitted his fury at the Dark King for allowing monsters to run wild across the land with no justice in sight. And yet, when Skirs asked what justice even meant to him, Aura's eyes didn't burn with hatred. They burned with something far more dangerous, a genuine wish for peace and happiness for everyone. Skirs looked at this exhausted, grieving boy and decided that wish was too naive to survive on its own. So he threw a sword down in front of him and told him to stop digging graves and start standing up to fight. That single moment changed everything. Aura rose and effortlessly countered every strike Skirs threw at him, disarming the old soldier outright. Because Skirs wasn't just wandering the ruins by accident, he was searching for the one person capable of succeeding the Dark King himself. And in Iora, grieving, furious, but still choosing kindness, he had finally found his heir. With the sword of leadership placed in Iora's hands, Skirs sent him to the capital with one final order. Claim the mansion, win the trust of the Knight Valis, and become the Dark Prince. The moment Aura's tears fell, a halo of light appeared around him, marking him as the chosen successor. And at that exact instant, far away, the old Dark King quietly passed from this world. Act 2, Two Kingdoms, one coming storm, while Aura was being reborn as a prince of darkness across the sky in the shining kingdom of Shiru. Its queen, Iris, a woman with pure white wings and an unshakable sense of duty, was already fighting a war of her own. A demon named Bal had been tearing through her kingdom for generations, and even her most powerful knights and sorcerers, including the ancient elven king Atlantia, could barely hold him back. When Bal first struck the western capital of Meds, entire units of soldiers were cut down like ants against his impenetrable hide, and only Atlantia's centuries of honed magic kept the slaughter from becoming a total massacre. Iris herself flew straight into that fight, her fury igniting at the sight of her people falling one after another. But even she, wielding the full power of the ancestral language, could barely scratch him. Bal simply grew bored and turned away, leaving the kingdom shaken. Iris quietly believed something deeper was happening behind it all, that the kingdom of darkness itself was spiraling out of control under its own mad king, and that only a new, worthy successor to that dark throne could ever restore the balance between their two worlds. She just didn't know yet that the successor she needed was already crossing the sea toward her. Back in Kiro, Aura trained relentlessly under the Knight Valis, who saw promise in him but refused to go easy, until, after months of brutal discipline, Aura finally managed to disarm the very man who trained him. Around this time, On a mission in the barren lands of Kiro, he saved the sharp-tongued Princess Grossa from a monster's claws with a single, effortless strike. And in that moment, without meaning to, he captured her heart completely. At a fierce tournament held to determine who deserved to wield the great sword of Kiro, Aora refused to stand by while weaker competitors were slaughtered by the arena's monsters, saving a struggling mage, even though it cost him the advantage. There, he met Eder, a brilliant, ruthless rival who mocked him for wasting strength protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Eder believed only the strong deserved to survive. Aora disagreed completely, and in the final match, he proved his ideal could still win, disarming Eder and earning both the great sword and, grudgingly, Eder's respect. Aora was now officially the Dark Prince. Act 3! Enemies become allies with Eder as his advisor and Grossa quietly trailing behind him. Aora sailed across the sky toward the kingdom of Shiru to deliver a proposal for peace. A land bathed in sunlight, utterly unlike anything he'd seen in his life. Fios, Shiru's fiercely loyal head knight, greeted them with open suspicion, certain the envoys from Kiro had come with hidden motives. And the moment Iris descended to the throne to hear them out, Aura was instantly, completely smitten. She wasn't nearly as easy to convince. Why would she be? Darkness had cost her people everything for as long as she could remember, and she flatly rejected the idea of reconciliation. But Aura spoke up anyway, insisting that once he took the throne, this endless cycle of suffering could finally end. Iris promised him an answer within a few days, and that answer came sooner than anyone expected, when the demon ball struck again, this time overwhelming both kingdoms at once. Pride stopped mattering. Valis led a preemptive strike from Kiro's side. Grossa unleashed years of honed magic, and when both of them were finally overwhelmed, it was the Dark King himself who appeared to save them, matching Bal blow for blow. Moments later, Iris arrived as well, chaining the monster in place with the ancestral water language. Two kingdoms raged. Two despise each other had just bled side by side to seal the same enemy into the Tartarus, ending a battle 1,000 years in the making. Iris signed the treaty. And for a little while, there was real fragile peace. For the calm, before the break, this is where the story lets you breathe. And it's some of the most human, heartfelt material in the entire series. Iris personally shows Aora, Eder, and Grossa around her beautiful capital, and a young boy named Theo, Theos' little brother, heals an injured bear cat with magic, so pure it leaves everyone stunned. The group swaps outfits between kingdoms just for fun, turning an afternoon into a fashion contest that leaves Grossa quietly heartbroken, watching Aura's eyes never once leave Iris. Shima, Shiru's brilliant sorceress, cooks a lavish dinner where Kiro's saltier cuisine collides hilariously with Shiru's blander dishes, until Aora improvises a combination that finally makes both sides happy. The next morning, the whole group heads into the forest for a wild vegetable picking competition, deliberately paired one Shiro native with one Kiro native to build trust between the nations. Aora and Iris end up working together, their hands brushing by accident while foraging, enough to make Theos grip his sword in jealousy and Grossa's heart quietly break all over again. When Theo wanders off and gets lost, it's Aora who finds Iris in a panic and, in his rush, ends up tumbling into a pond with her. Soaked, laughing, drying their clothes side by side. It's in this exact moment that Iris realizes she's falling for him. That night, Grossa finally confesses her feelings to Aora directly and watches him gently, painfully make it clear his heart already belongs to someone else. She lets go of him in tears, but vows to stand beside him anyway for the rest of his life. It's warm. It's funny. It's dangerously fragile, because peace in this world never lasts. Act 5, Betrayal at the palace, everything shatters in an instant. As the envoys prepare to sail home, laden with gifts from Shiru, Eder, enraged that his people are forced to live in darkness, while Shiru basks in eternal sunlight and effortless abundance, accuses Iris of hiding behind balance to justify her kingdom's dominance. In a burst of speed, he attacks her outright. Before her own guards can even react, Aora cuts him down to save the queen's life. To everyone watching, it looks like cold-blooded murder of an ally in the middle of a fragile truce. Theos, blind with fury and grief, beats Aora savagely and throws him into a dungeon cell. Even though Aora had just saved his queen from the grip of death, Iris is too stunned to even speak up in his defense. Nobody in that courtyard knows the darker truth hiding underneath it all, that Eder had secretly been given a mission by the Dark King himself. one that involved something far more sinister than a diplomatic visit. The entire friendship arc had quietly been poisoned from the very beginning, locked it away and broken. Aurora wakes to find a mysterious white cat standing before his cell, the door mysteriously open. He follows her past sleeping guards, through the forest, to the cliffside where Iris always goes to think alone. There, bathed in a halo of light, the cat transforms back into Iris herself. She had defied everyone to come free impersonally. In that moment, both truths finally come out. Iris admits she's in love with the boy the world told her to see as a monster, and Aura finally reveals who he truly is. Not a mere soldier, but the heir to the entire kingdom of darkness. He vows to always watch over her, no matter what mistakes either of them makes along the way. Act 6, the war they can't stop. But love doesn't cancel a war that's already been set into motion. Demonic beasts start appearing more frequently on both sides of the border, and Iris, still dangerously weakened from overusing the ancestral language, refuses to rest while her kingdom needs her. Fios, desperate to save her, secretly journeys with the elf Atlantis into a corrosive, deadly cave guarded by a lightless labyrinth, blasting through stone walls and deciphering hidden passages made of mineral rock, just to reach a divine light said to restore her strength. He reaches it, but his armor is left smoking with corrosion. His own life nearly forfeit for hers. Meanwhile, back in Kiro, Aurora and Grossa are ambushed by a monstrous beast while investigating attacks along the front lines. They only survive by fighting back to back, Grossa's lightning clearing the path for Aurora's final blow. It's a small, quiet victory, but it's overshadowed by a growing dread. Valis, who has served the Kingdom of Darkness far longer than anyone realizes, quietly senses that something about the King's true plans has changed. And when Aurora is finally confronted, deep inside the capital, by a horrifyingly transformed, fully demonic version of Eder, resurrected and twisted by the King's true agenda, he's forced to strike him down for real this time. With his very last breath, Eder delivers one final warning. The Dark King never wanted an alliance at all! He intends to destroy both kingdoms, shatter the endless cycle of succession, and rule alone over all of eternity. For now, the price of a new world, the Dark King's true invasion begins. And it is nothing like the battles that came before it. Demons blacken the sky above Shiru's capital. Soldiers, their minds consumed by shadow, turn on their own comrades, forcing Shima to cut down men she once fought beside. Fios and Valis, the two greatest knights of light and darkness, finally clash directly in a spectacular, earth-shaking duel neither can fully win. And high above them, Iris flies to face the Dark King alone, refusing to let anyone else pay the price for this war. She loses, badly. He effortlessly dodges every strike she throws, mocking her as nothing more than a fleeting light standing against a power that has grown for centuries. Shima's shield begins to crack under the weight of the darkness pressing down on the city, and even the last desperate hope of the Fate Gear starts to flicker and fade. With her kingdom crumbling and no other option left, Iris makes the ultimate choice, unleashing the full, catastrophic power of the ancestral water language, sacrificing it completely, along with the very ground her people stand on, just to strip the Dark King of his strength. Aurora feels her call ripple across the entire battlefield. The hidden power sealed inside him, the true, awakened strength of the Dark Prince finally breaks free. Black wings tear through his back, and he flies faster than he's ever moved in his life, cutting down everything in his path, desperate to reach her before it's too late. He's too late to save her from the collapse. But he's not too late for what she asked of him. As the sky and earth tear apart around them, Aurora drives his sword straight through the Dark King's eye, delivering the final blow that ends the tyrant who orchestrated every death, every betrayal, and every war in this story from the very beginning. The orphan who once could only watch, helpless, as everyone he loved was taken from him, became the one thing no one ever expected him to be, the heir who finally broke the cycle. That's the story of a boy who lost everything and the queen who believed a monster could still choose to be good and who gave up everything she to prove it choose to be good. If you want to see how this world of light, darkness, and impossible love actually plays out frame by frame, make sure to watch the full series for yourself. Make sure to watch the full series for yourself. And let me know in the comments who you're rooting for, the Dark Prince or the Queen of Light.